This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Rony and Ted Chilowitz for This Week in XR. It's Friday, September 27th, and we have a great guest today, Yonatan Tal, CEO of Supersocial, which is building places in Roblox and Fortnite. We were just talking about Roblox and Fortnite last night when Ted was a guest in my graduate class for ASU and gave the students some tough love and some inspiration. I know some of them are listening to the podcast, but I think it's very hard to understand when you're 25 years old and you're entering a creative field and you're passionate and you like to build things and you're willing to do something that's hard, that no one is going to give you a job, that you are basically going to be a freelancer your entire life. If you're lucky, you'll work for a company, maybe a big company for 5 years, but that's it. They have no loyalty to you. They don't even like you. And that's reality. And you have to look out for yourself. And I'm not sure with very few professions today, is it any different? But in a creative field, I mean, you know that going in, you chose this field. This field is inherently insecure. And if you're going to succeed, you're going to make yourself succeed. Mm-hmm. And Ted did an exercise which I found kind of inspiring and reminded me of something that the dean said at the Art Institute of Chicago in 1981 when I was starting graduate school, which is take a look around you. Who among these people do you believe, like don't say anything, but look at them and really say, do you believe this guy is going to make it? Right? And then reflect on why. And then try and see yourself as that other guy is seeing you. Are you one of the people they're looking at, saying that person is going to make it? And if you're not, why not? It's very hard things to accept when you're young. They're even hard to accept, honestly, at my age, but it is reality. And in a fight between you and reality, reality always wins.
Reality bites. But guys, I think one thing people forget is the only secure people are insecure overachievers. and if you're an insecure overachiever, you're never secure. And I've met some of the most top performing athletes, tech people, engineers, artists in the world. They never think they're good enough. They're edgy. They're always trying to do better. They never feel comfortable. It's a bit of a curse, but that makes them secure because they're never feeling secure. And they so worry about not performing well, they always overachieve. Those people are always going to have a job, will always have a freelance work, are always hunted for. Anyone who ever feels secure and that you're confident in your work, you're probably just a hair away from being finished. So if to be secure, you have to spend your life being an insecure overachiever, at least in the Western free market world, or move to a Caribbean island, fish, grow vegetables, hang out, play your
and somehow accept that you're irrelevant.
Yeah,
enjoy life, just enjoy life.
I think a healthy dose of imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. I think I'll bet the three of us have lived with it in some way, shape, or form our whole life.
Always.
If you get lucky enough to get a job where you're in over your head, and you feel like an imposter, you don't realize it at the time, but those are the best days of your life.
Yeah. Well, I've had 40 years of it, so I don't know.
Well, that's right. Well, you can measure life by how many best days you have, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the big news this week.
Let's get to it, guys.
All right, so what we used to call it Oculus Connect, now it's Meta Connect. It's the development conference for people working with Meta. It's always, I never get up there because it's always on a teaching day. Somehow that is my fate. When I got to the point that they started inviting me, I couldn't go. So I have to rely on Alex Heath and other people who are there and are very serious journalists.
Yeah, it's the first one I missed in the entire arc of it because now I'm teaching as well and had the same problem is that I was committed to teaching and we sent some friends up there that were definitely going and we got our little inside dope on it all, but it was a long run. I think
So
7 or 8 of them that I went in a row, and this was the first one I had to
So
miss.
well, let's get to the biggest story last because the most important story wasn't the biggest story. The most important story is what they're doing with AI and AI assistants and celebrity voices. And I gotta tell you guys, I think the game is agents. That is, this whole thing on the consumer side is about agents. If I can become your agent and start helping you with transactions and borrowing into your life and your personal information like that, it's like Gmail. You've got me for life.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about Meta as a company, something that you just reminded me of, Charlie, is that Meta stumbles early often, but I've not seen any tech giant with as much stick-to-itiveness as Meta. Like
Insane.
they stay with it, even in the face of all the criticism and the what are you doing? This is idiotic. It doesn't work.
Zuckerberg is relentless. You have to
They are
worry
relentless.
if that guy is after you, you have to worry. And he's determined not to make the mistake they made in mobile, although I wouldn't say it's a mistake. They were a small company then. But today they obviously are betting that they're going to influence the course of what succeeds, what's the successor device to the smartphone. So they showed us what they think could be the successor device. It's called Orion. That's what everybody is talking about. It's got pretty amazing specs. It's a standalone. There is a puck, but it's Bluetooth. So the batteries are up there, but some compute is in the puck, which again, you could also stuff into your smartphone if you weren't trying to get rid of it.
Well, I think that's the long game, right? The
Yeah.
puck is
So
the engineering sample, and the long game is it's the
yeah.
thing you already have in your pocket that will
Yeah.
connect.
So it looks, I mean, they kept saying it looks kind of normal. It did not look kind of normal.
Doesn't look that normal yet.
It doesn't look, it only looks normal compared to the Magic Leap 1.
Right. Or any other VR device that is, of course,
But
not normal in any way, shape, or form. Yeah,
yeah, but it takes, I guess they were estimating the cost to manufacture around $10,000, which is 2 or 3 times the Vision Pro. But here's the thing that is so compelling about it. Just like the Snap headset we were talking about last week, it's a see-through headset. You're looking through glass, and all the combination of the physical and the digital is taking place, in front of your eyes. And
Yeah,
it's
I don't think anybody knows. I mean, Rony may have some insights on this on the exact specs, but some of the pictures I saw of Zuck and others wearing it and some press wearing it, it looks like they have a fairly large eye box. The glasses themselves are fairly thick, so there's clearly some sort of projector or maybe multiple projectors, maybe 2 on each sort of reflective eye box. And the eye box is really, really close to your eye. So that to me is probably the most effective engineering that I've seen in terms of the evolution of this. Is there's a couple of times where Mark is wearing it and it's reflected, and you can actually see the image is like almost an inch, across his eye. So I think that's where they're getting
it's 70
the
degrees
feel.
diagonal, which is roughly equivalent to Magic Leap 2. Rony, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. You called it in your Medium piece, Magic Leap 2.5, and said it represented a very solid sort of Gemini stage of the moonshot.
Yeah, for our listeners, I've always categorized our sector into Mercury, Gemini, Apollo. If you're a NASA geek, Mercury was like, can we even get near space? Gemini is like, let's go and orbit around the moon and do some spacewalks. And Apollo is like really preparing for and then executing the moon landing. So when Apple Vision Pro came out, I said that with Magic Leap 2 represented where we are in the middle of the Gemini era. And then I was thinking that Meta was going to drop this. What they did, I was thinking exactly this is what they were going to drop for a couple of reasons. One, hundreds of former Magic Leapers are there. I call them now the Meta Leapers. So they knew exactly what we did on Magic Leap 1 and 2. They knew exactly what the plans were for Magic Leap 3, 4, and beyond. So they didn't quite get to Magic Leap 3 because I know what those specs were and what was happening after. So pretty much nailed what I would call a Magic Leap 2.5, which I would say is incredibly impressive given the fact how far off base Apple went with Vision Pro, which we already beat them up at South by Southwest. We don't need to rehash that. But I think what was interesting is that Mark put the industry back on the right track. Right. Like, unfortunately, like the folks running Magic Leap today don't have the power to do that. They don't have the influence to do that. But Mark, with his army of Reality Labs people and former Meta Leapers, wherever they are, he said, no, this is the way forward. And I actually think he took a pretty threatening blow to the entire mobile phone industry, which is like, I'm actually spending more money and more focused and more determined than anyone else in tech. I will get there. I have been going there while you guys have been laughing at me. Now you're not laughing anymore. Now you're so far behind. Maybe the only people that could catch up are Apple and whoever buys Magic Leap.
Yeah.
Because if you buy Magic Leap, you actually have enough IP to stay in the game. But I think everyone else is like scared out of their mind because they're like, nothing else is going to be sufficient. And the most impressive things, and Charlie posted an article I wrote, but they got the thing down around 100 grams. That's still Gemini. When Mark gets it to the same form factor as Ray-Ban Metas, and we know that's the target. You just have to draw a line between Orion and Ray-Ban Meta and go, he will get to 90 to 95 degree, get to that weight, pair that to an all-day thing in your pocket, game over. That is the thing that replaces so many devices. Now, how many years and how much money away, but that guy is determined to make it happen. He sees it.
The most important part is going to be that it is an ideal platform for sensors. And that AI is going to run the device. You're shaking your head.
Well, no, Charlie, I'm just sort of shaking my head maybe in a run. But this show that we do is about XR and AI.
Yes.
And what Mark showed was, yes, we agree with that. Like things I was talking about at Magic Leap in 2018, it was like human-centered AI and spatial computing. Sounded like a bunch of blah, blah, blah. But today, when you look at Orion and the ability to actually bring amazing AI with a very small form factor AR into the world, it's XR and AI. That's such a powerful combination. And if you don't have that, you're pretty much going to be left in the dust. Like a mobile phone and a tablet and a TV and a PC are going to feel like Blockbuster pretty soon. Because the richness that you get from the sensors and that local AI and the ability to have frictionless interaction with everything, thoughtlessness, I just put it on. If you've ever tried Ray-Ban Metas, not the Orion, and go that thoughtlessness of the low weight, and now combine that with like maybe 1 or 2 generations past Orion, it's now very easy to see that it's not Vision Pro, it's not Oculus, it's not these big heavy VR things. I mean, we've debated this for a while, but someone needed to put $80 billion on the table and push it to that point where it now seems inevitable. I don't know if you guys sort of agree with that, but I feel like it's now inevitable that at least Meta will get there. I would say that Tim Cook also has to get there. He has no choice, but to put 10,000 people on this and go Vision Pro. No, it's this.
I had such an interesting conversation with an executive at Apple. They're very secretive. I won't reveal enough that people will know who that is. But he said, yeah, because I was like, I mean, you released this thing, you didn't call it a developer version, you spent $1 billion telling people about it. Why? They shouldn't buy it. He said, you don't understand. People don't understand how much conflict there was here. And that it got solved at the highest levels of the company. Yeah. And literally people were told, okay, it's time to stop talking about that because we're doing this.
But you know what's funny, Charlie? There's a team at Apple, probably all 3 of us know this, who are working on the Apple Orion.
Yes,
we know that. We know that, and
that they did publicly say last year or 2 years ago that they were not funding that anymore.
They are. I think without breaking any confidences, I think there is no question that Apple has been working and will accelerate their work on glasses form factor based on what Snap showed and what Meta showed, that there is a future to this, that it makes sense. I mean, the curiosity that I have is does Apple actually have the right personnel now in place to accomplish this? Like, will they actually pull it off?
You know what's funny? Without getting too detailed, the senior leadership on this project at Apple and the senior leadership on this project at Meta,
Yeah.
many of them are former leapers. So
Right, of course.
I know exactly what they're doing because I know the people and
You
what
know
they
the people
were
doing it.
aware of. And it's very interesting to see this, like these two camps splitting. It's like taking the Rolling Stones and one creates a band and one creates another band and they sort of sound similar. But it's very interesting because I think Mark threw down the gauntlet and now Apple has no choice but to at least meet him, if not beat him on every single spec, not on Orion, where Orion will be in 2 years and 5 years. It's like the game is on and there's no way Apple can back out. I think
Well,
it would
you
be
know what's interesting
disastrous if
about
they back
Meta?
out.
What's interesting about Meta is at a Connect, this is probably at least 5 years ago. I have a photo, because I was sitting very close in the front row there, of Mark on stage when he's talking about like this is like pre-Quest, right? Like they're just sort of like showing that there's going to be an all-in-one headset and it's not out in the world yet. That goes that far back. And he showed an image of regular glasses, just like the glasses you're wearing with a camera in the middle. He's standing up on stage and he's like, "This is the future. This is the form factor we need to get to. This is what I'm working on. Everything I'm doing now is just a step to that. And we're going to keep working on all those form factors until we get to that." 5, 6 years later, he's showing the first kind of touch points of getting to that. So this is not like, 5 minutes they've been working on this. This has been the long-term goal that he was very public about a long time ago. It's very interesting.
Can I tell you guys something? This has like never been in public, but I just have to say it because it's perfect for the show. I won't tell you the whole story. I'm working on a book, so it'll be in the book. But I met Mark for the first time just after he bought Oculus. Remember, like he bought Oculus for something, and then I'm at a conference. I won't go into details, and I'm sitting by myself, and he comes over and he introduces himself, say, "I'm Mark, Facebook." I'm like, yeah, I've heard of Facebook. And he's like, "I heard you're working on something," and I basically explained augmented reality to him because he had just experienced virtual reality just a few months before. He bought Palmer's company and Oculus, and it was all about VR. And then I'm like, well, there's this other thing that I think is actually much more interesting. So I think I could say, I don't know 100%, but I'm probably 99 and at least 9% confident. I might have put augmented reality on Mark's face for the first
Into
time.
his brain.
Into his brain. And I think from that point forward, there, like he's like when something goes on a lock, like a hawk sees a rabbit or a shark smells something, you could just see his eye change, like, in the Jurassic Park where like the Velociraptor's eyes, like they just dial in on the prey. I could see that moment where he's like, yes. And it was just like from that moment forward, it's like the movie Predator. He's like, I'm going to go do that. And I think he then had this twin path of like, oh, I just spent $3 billion on Oculus. We've got to make it work. But I think the obsession of AR, because if you think about it, social interactions, how will you get billions of people to socially interact in the world, can only be AR at real scale. VR is always going to be a small subset. So to his credit, he has not let go of that obsession for more than a decade. He's like on it, like a T-Rex running through the forest, chasing a goat. He's not going to give up until he eats that goat.
Tony, if you can remember the time frame of that, do you think Pokemon Go was on the landscape when you had that conversation or not? Because I would imagine that if it was, you connected a dot that he already knew was a big thing and a big problem for him, that he doesn't have augmented social in his world on a smartphone, and Nintendo and Niantic have it. I'm curious.
I think around that time, Pokemon Go on the phone,
Yes,
like augmented reality on the phone was
that was
there.
2015, if I recall.
No, this was 2014.
I'm saying Pokemon Go was released.
Oh, so maybe this was the year before then.
Yeah, interesting.
I think the meeting I'm describing, Mark, was like 2014. But it was really interesting because I go back 10 years. It's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you could see the snap in the eye.
Sure.
So I'm like that origin moment of like Mark seeing and tasting AR. And it's just like, boom, like I'm going to go there. And he has not given up for 10 straight years.
Like you said, their stick-to-itiveness is
I knew Rony was going to have something to say about this. We didn't get to the rest of the news today.
We have a guest on.
But we brought our guest in because I didn't want to leave him waiting in the waiting room thinking, do I have the wrong Zoom address? Yonatan Friedman of Supersocial, thank you for joining us today.
Hey guys, good morning. Good to be here.
You haven't met Rony and Ted, but Yonatan and I got together at South by Southwest, and he told me about his company, Supersocial, and struck me as a guy who was seeing ahead. And he's really leaned into the growth of those two platforms, the movement to more social experiences on those two platforms, and what kind of a role creators can play. And what do people want to do there? So I thought those insights would be really compelling for us to learn more about. So Jonathan, thanks for coming on and offering to help educate people about what's going on there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great group of people. I'm still learning. I'm maybe a step and a half ahead of you guys, but I also feel, 4.5 years being on the Roblox platform now, it's a platform that is in an ever evolving shape. I think what drove me to jump into the platform almost 5 years ago was really the understanding, or I would say the hypothesis that there's two kind of things happening at the same time. One, a whole new generation of rebels, creators of all ages that Roblox essentially equipped with skills and tools for free to learn how to build games and then make money and build businesses. There's now more than 1 million developers on the Roblox platform. A small portion of them are employed at Supersocial. But what's unique about them is they're all self-taught. Many of them didn't even go to universities yet. Many of them are underage and already building businesses that some of them make millions of dollars in revenue every month. And then on the other side, you have the consumers, the users. There's a whole new generation. Anyone below age 25 doesn't need to be sold or explained about the metaverse, because guess what? They're already living in 3D persistent, synchronous, real-time virtual world. Sure, they play games, but really they express themselves creatively through 3D avatars. They socialize, they play games, and they're doing things that, for us, millennials and up, look almost like ridiculous. I remember talking to someone from a big corporation in fashion and told them that users on Roblox change their avatar outfit in virtual goods every day, 20% of the platform. And the first question he asked me wasn't how amazing this is, but what are virtual goods? So that's the gap.
So, Yonatan, we always do this. We jump into the middle of the conversation, but maybe we should rewind just a little bit so that you can tell the listeners what is Supersocial, how do you guys make money, how big are you, and just sort of the basics of, what you talked a little bit about being inspired to start the company 5 years ago. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, a little bit about your background, your early background. Are you a gamer by nature? Like, what brought you to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Israeli native, repeat founder. I've now been working on my third venture with Supersocial. I've always been at the intersection of technology, creativity, play, learning throughout the companies I founded, all the way from Kano, a computer company that powered by the Raspberry Pi, which I co-founded in London about 12 years ago, to what I'm doing today with Supersocial. So there's kind of a through line between all of these different ventures. I'm not a gamer, to your question, Ted. I am a player of games, all the way from my first sort of memories of playing, Supersonic on the Mega Drive and Game Gear and Nintendo 64 with Super Mario. These are some of the most influential machines that have been in my life, in my childhood. I've never thought I'll be in the business of making games. But I think my different perspective on the landscape, and because I don't come from the gaming industry per se, and more from consumer technology, really allowed me over time to look at Roblox as a phenomena that is first and foremost a social phenomena rather than a game industry phenomena. And in early 2020, when COVID hit and I was running away from New York with my wife to stay with my in-laws in Columbus, Ohio, on the way there, about 10 hours drive, I started thinking about, okay, there's going to be millions of young people locked out of schools. They're going to be locked in their homes. At peak, there were like 2 billion kids under age 18 locked at COVID in their homes. And I started to think about all the things I've done in the previous years as an entrepreneur. And Roblox kind of felt like, if this thing that people think about as a evolution of the internet, metaverse, 3D persistent worlds, is going to happen, well, what if Roblox is the first large-scale prototype of what that could look like? Not because Roblox is the perfect example, but it does have a lot of the components that we would want to see in an open, interoperable 3D internet, which is a virtual economy, persistency, synchronicity, real time, multiplayer social world. Sure, a lot of it is because of video games, but what if these video games actually can evolve into a new type of social platform? So that's the bet we've made in June 2020 when we started Supersocial. And we had no idea where this is going to go, but we knew that Roblox is probably a really solid place to start. Not because the economy of Roblox is in the multi-billion dollars and you can potentially build a billion-dollar company on the platform. You may or may not. That was less of the question. The question was, what is the most practical place to start building a new company in a category that is really just being shaped, knowing that the internet really doesn't have yet protocols that can enable actually an interoperable 3D internet. So that was the genesis of starting Supersocial and focusing initially on the Roblox platform. And then UEFN came out, which is still early stage. And you have other platforms that we're keeping an eye on. But fundamentally, this new category of what we think of as 3D social platform, Roblox is by far the category leader, the dominant platform in this space. And we've been learning a lot over the last 4.5 years how this shapes up.
So maybe explain a little bit about what your business is, because I haven't quite heard yet what you do for a living, how you support these creators, what the contract is, what the deal is with them. Like what is exactly that Supersocial does?
Supersocial is a studio. In a nutshell, we build experiences. We have a couple of businesses inside Supersocial. One of our businesses is we build virtual world for brand and IP owners. Some of our partners on the brand side have been companies like Gucci, Walmart, Universal Music Group, NARS Cosmetics, Elf Beauty, et cetera, et cetera. We also partner with third-party IP owners. We recently launched the first official Pac-Man game on the Roblox platform with Bandai Namco. In Q4, we're going to launch the first official Monsterverse with Legendary Entertainment. And we're constantly evolving and bringing more essentially IP owners, toy companies, movie studios from all over the world to come into the Roblox platform, because for them, this is kind of a way to monetize their IP and introduce their IP to a new audience. And then we also build original IP, our own experiences that we fully own and monetize with users on the platform.
So you have a staff of coders there that are like, you would be defined from my standpoint. I used to work at a big movie studio, and we hired different companies that had coders that had specific platform skills, right? So we had a group that was working on Fortnite with the Epic engine and with the Fortnite engine. We had a group that was working with a couple of companies out of the UK that were like literally all they did was code for Roblox. They worked in the Roblox tool set, their engine basically. And that's what, so you have a staff or it's freelance people that come to you?
So we're a 360 studio. We have all of our capabilities in-house to design, build, and operate live ops of experiences on the Roblox platform. We're about 30 people full-time, fully remote and distributed, mostly US based. And we do most of our work in-house across engineering, art, design. Let's put it this way. If you're a movie studio or a big IP owner, you partner with Supersocial, we do the whole thing.
Full stack. So how many of that 30 staff are actually creating games? The bulk of them or
most of them? Yeah.
Almost all of them. Got it. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. There are very few people like me that barely do anything in the company.
So from a customer standpoint, meaning your clients, the way you make rain, so to speak, is because of now obviously you have momentum, but when these brands are in a conversation with Roblox is now like recommending you as one of the premier builders inside of their 3D virtual world. Is that the way things have unfolded? So at this point, your sales method is picking up the phone.
That's a very direct way of explaining, I think, a really interesting dynamic that is happening in the ecosystem. There is a handful of studios that operate at a level of professionalism that Roblox as a platform, I believe, feel comfortable introducing brands or connecting brands to those studios. I'm fortunate that Supersocial is one of them. We have proven ourselves. There's certainly a handful of them. And I think this is constantly evolving. But you're right, Roblox is a technology platform. They do not build experiences. They do not directly serve those brands. And there's now hundreds of brands that have been coming into the Roblox platform and more will come. So we are definitely well positioned to serve this myriad of brands and IP owners that are looking to establish presence on the platform.
Right. So these are people who have a relationship with Roblox. They're advertising, or they're in a conversation about advertising and reaching that audience, right? Which is primarily, a youth audience, 10 to 24.
Yeah, but there's certainly, just to clarify, I would say our business historically until today, certainly we've received some introductions, but we also receive a lot of cold emails. I'm getting, a couple of times a week, someone emailing hello at
And
Supersocial.
how are they hearing about you? Just by finding out from other companies?
I think it's talking to other brands and companies, looking at the credibility. I mean, Supersocial, there's a lot of press releases about the work we've done. Again, launching branded experiences with Gucci, Walmart, UMG, Bandai Namco certainly builds credibility for our studio.
When you put I'm going to set Pac-Man aside because it's a game and it's obvious how you'll make money and how Roblox will make money. But a company like Gucci, they pay you to build this place, but then do they pay Roblox to have that place exist in their 3D world?
No. So the way this works in simple terms, the way Roblox makes money as a platform is when users spend money in Robux, which is the platform currency in the games. That could be inside games, buying virtual goods, etc. That's the primary way Roblox makes money. The second way Roblox makes money, which is something they introduced over the last 12, 18 months, they now have an advertising network where brands can come in and advertise inside the platform. That could be search ad, video ads, immersive ads, etc. That is a growing revenue vehicle for the platform. Roblox doesn't make money on the B2B deals we're making. Roblox doesn't take a cut of that.
Yeah, so Charlie, you did this with Nickelodeon. There was a gaming team at Paramount that built a whole Nick world in that realm, and that was how the deal worked, basically. And so there's profit. There's enough profit to make it viable, as long as there's enough of an audience and they're engaged to actually buy the skins and commit to the upgrades, which is an interesting sort of strategy. But it is profitable. I have a question for Yonatan. This is maybe a sort of a tricky philosophical question. Part of my challenge with Roblox, and that's just maybe my era of the kind of games that I like to play, is there's a tremendous amount of sameness in the games. The games all feel like there's like 3 games that they all have like hundreds and hundreds of skins of the same mechanics. You're running, you're throwing, you're touching, you're moving. It is social by nature. That is the goal set. But I'm curious, do you spend time with your creators trying to break out of that sort of curse of, like, there's only a few things at Roblox that really attract an audience and keep an audience, right? It's a tiny little sliver of the amount. You talk about 1 million creators, 999,000+ of them are creating for no one, right? And then there's a tiny sliver that's creating for a lot of people, and those are successful. But I'm curious where you fall, or where your team falls, on how do you explore the creativity of a somewhat limited platform by its sort of goal set, that it has to be so user-friendly for creators to build.
I think we need to delineate between 2 different things. One is the amount of games that exist on the platform and the challenge of acquiring users to the games you build.
Yeah.
And between the level of innovation that is happening on the platform. And let me make one statement really clear. The Roblox platform, the games on the platform, are not designed for us. Meaning it's not for you.
I get it.
It's not for me. Even with being almost 5 years on the platform, when I go into the platform and check games and play games, I still struggle to get what I need to do in most of the games.
I'm glad you're being honest about it, because no one is as honest as that. That is really interesting, because that's the same thing. I'm like,
I'm very honest, which is,
I don't get it.
I'm very honest. I'm very
You're
honest,
not 12.
which is why our entire developer team, all of our developers, all of our creators at Supersocial were all born and grew up on the Roblox platform. I do not have off-platform talent, because the people who know the best, the people who lived this platform for the past decade plus, and they bring all of that humility and curiosity and experience and understanding what kicks users on the platform. But I will say this, being on the platform now for almost 5 years, sure, there's a lot of tried and true things, 80% stuff you need to do for your games to make sense on Roblox. That's not any different from any other platform.
Right.
But the 20% innovation, this is the most innovative, creative platform on the internet by far. This is a relentless pursuit of innovation and incremental improvements. And you got to see these young people, these developers, they operate ruthlessly. They get inspired and they copy one another, but they constantly evolve what makes. I'll give you an example. If we design a game today, in 6 months, by the time we want to launch something, it may not make sense. So what we're trying to do is build a machine where every 4-8 weeks we launch a new game, original, so we can constantly iterate. And that's the big challenge with brands and IP owners. They don't move yet at a speed of Roblox.
Right.
They move at a speed of other platforms. And to win on Roblox, you got to move at the speed of the platform, which is a big disruption.
Yoni, a couple questions for you. So, one, there was a time where Zynga was building everything on Facebook, and they became somewhat successful, and then became very brittle, and the whole thing fell apart. So, I had two questions for you. Are you planning to diversify from only Roblox to being a studio on many platforms? That's one. And second one is, how do you see the role of AI in terms of like speed of creating an experience, and also its ability to potentially disintermediate studios, because you may have the idea that they would tell you, now you have the idea that you give a Roblox AI and it just makes the thing. What's your perception? Because those are the two things I think like are potential risks for you, but how are you mitigating those?
Great questions, Ronnie. So let me start with the first one. Supersocial, by definition, has to be a multi-platform studio, right? We got to be on all the biggest platforms in the 3D space. Today it's Roblox. Next is most likely going to be Fortnite, UEFN, and then any other platform that emerges that becomes relevant, which at the moment is unclear who that is. So multi-platform company by definition. To your second question, which is much more interesting and strategic and existential, there is a world in the very distant future where AI could completely displace studios. I do not see that entirely happening, but I do believe AI can create 1 or 2 people studios that operate at a massive scale, unlike any other time in history. But I think this is going to take a long, long time. I'm looking at generative AI technologies for environment art, for character assets every week. They are not there yet. It's going to happen. It's going to come. But I think they will more of augment human creativity rather than replace. It will certainly allow to build major studios with a few people. Versus 25, 30, let alone AAA studios. That's one thing. The second thing, the thing that will happen more rapidly is using code to basically build faster, more efficiently, and more effectively. So again, augmenting our engineers, augmenting our artists. I think this is going to be the first wave. The second wave, which I think is still far, is how do you use generative AI capabilities to empower users inside games to actually use AI to expand the play experiences. That is something that I actually much more excited about, which is less on the productivity side and it's more on the creativity side. And what I'm curious about, what can we use generative AI capabilities to create games and experiences that are going to be everlasting, more engaging, more fun, better monetizing, providing more opportunities for users to become creators. These are the areas that I think we're going to see a lot of innovation that I'm very excited about. And I also think this is to a large degree where at least Roblox is pushing with their 3D and 4D research.
Interesting. So we've got about 5 minutes. Charlie had to run off for a second. He'll be back in. Oh, there he is. He's been back in a moment. Had to deal with a little housing crisis going on. So I said, Charlie,
we're very informal here on our show.
Charlie,
it's wonderful. I love it.
I just informed Yoni that we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes here. So if there's kind of some parting thoughts, I think, we just started to talk about AI entering this space, right? I guess the question for you, Yoni, would be, are some of your coders already experimenting and using AI to augment and enhance some of their sort of things that, some of the practical work, some of the things that take a lot of time and a lot of cycles? Are they finding that yet, or is that still kind of a ways away for you?
We're certainly experimenting constantly with AI capabilities. I would say when we do, for example, new concept art for games we're building, it wouldn't be surprising to find my team using Midjourney to experiment with initial preliminary ideation around concept environment.
Right.
So that's one way we're using it. Our team specifically is using GitHub. So GitHub Copilot is something we're using as well. So we're certainly starting to use and experiment and learn how do we take advantage of these tools.
Roblox announced a couple months ago that they were enhancing the tool set inside of Roblox with a bunch of generative AI tools.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they have announced
surfaces and a lot of other
yes.
stuff that creators have been asking for are finally possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've announced material generators, surface generators, and things like that. It's still early. We have not really fully deployed using those tools in our production. It does show where Roblox is heading. Again, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Charlie, I think the bigger picture, the most exciting things for me about generative AI, and I think where Roblox is pushing as well, is how do you use generative AI to actually integrate it in ways that allows players and users to be more creative within the games rather than necessarily displace or completely replace studios. I think there's going to be innovation there as well. But what we're excited about as a studio is how do we use generative AI in the future to really create new type of games, new type of experiences, giving creativity tools to users inside the games. And I think Roblox they also announced they have now a 40 people research team, which is, obviously relatively small, but they have a 40 people research team that is fully focused on research for not only 3D, generative AI in 3D, but also in 4D, right? How do you create fully from a prompt an object with motion? So this is really the exciting thing that I believe are going to happen over the next 10, 15 years. And I do believe Roblox in their little world are going to be a category leader.
So here's my final question for all of you guys. Is just for our listeners, is there one game that's the standout? I mean, clearly you talked about Pac-Man. That's a big brand. We all know that's multi-generational. Outside of that, is there something that was created totally independently, completely original IP that is the absolute biggest hit on your platform, the one that everybody talks about, the one that's drawing the biggest audience, consistent audience? What's your biggest hit?
I'm actually excited to share an update that one of our latest original, it's a game called Mining Tycoon, is really picked up in a matter of a couple of weeks now to a place where it's finally published in the top trending games on the platform, which is an impossible sort to get into. So Mining Tycoon, the latest original from Supersocial, by the way, built by two people, in-house, all in, incredibly talented team, Team Genesis, they call themselves internally, and they've launched Mining Tycoon. It's now live. Go check it out. It's exciting. It's on the top trading sort on the Roblox platform, several thousand CCU as we speak. And this is the level of innovation. You gotta build. Here's an interesting thing, Ted. When you look at the top games on the Roblox platform and you look who built them, all of them, these are developers who built multiple games, sometimes 20, 30, 50 games, until they made it to become a top 10, top 20 games. And the top 10 games...
It's a hits business,
but
right? You have to build 20 games to have one that's a substantial moneymaker.
100%. But here's the numbers that will blow your mind, guys, and your listeners. On the top 10 games on the platform, these games now make $30 million on average. Okay, $30 million. Sometimes these are games built by two people. The top 100 on the Roblox platform now make on average $5 million a year. The top 1,000 now makes almost $750,000 games in revenue a year. Wow. And this is a platform that is dominated by young people. There's never been anything like that in the internet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Never.
Oh, you're right. No, that's why
it's so funny. Ted was visiting my graduate class last night.
This goes full circle now on the podcast.
Yeah, Ted visited the class, and they're like, well, what do we need to learn in graduate school to position ourselves to have jobs or to be, in the center of things in the future? Because these are all people interested in immersive media. And so the first thing we thought of was, well, if you're not going to learn Unity or Unreal Engine, you need to learn Roblox and Fortnite, because that's where the audience is. And because that's where the audience is, that's where the jobs are.
Yeah, and where the success
100%.
is. If you land one of those hits, and to your point, yes, there's top 100 creators are making real serious money and real serious profit, but top 1,000 are making probably
that's-
close to $1 million.
Yeah, that's like doable.
Yeah. Now,
Guys,
you
there's
gotta
no doubt.
understand
There's no
that
doubt.
From that 1,000, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other creators that are making squat, right? So that's the game.
For sure, hundreds of thousands,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands, for sure. But Charlie, your point is right, and I'd love to echo that, which is there's no doubt that the education institutions of today, as elite as they are, do not prepare young people for the future. And the future is going to be a combination of a lot of things. One of those things, I believe, is creating. If you learn to create all kind of different content, right? It could be 2D, 3D, but learning to create, being a creator, I think that is a big area of where the future of workforce is going to be, even with the advent of AI. I believe AI will be augmenting human creativity, not replace, but certainly allow us to build companies at a fraction of the cost and capital required to do what we're doing today with hundreds.
This has been a great visit. I've learned so much, and I have so many other questions for you. Maybe you and I can continue offline. I would really love to have you, as a guest in one of my classes. And I know you've got some breaking news coming up, so we'll talk more about that in the near future. Ted, Rony, have a great weekend, and
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
see you back here next Friday, everyone.
Lovely to chat. Very interesting.
to
Thanks
meet
for
you.
having me. Great to meet you all.
Yonatan.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.